Welcome back to the 2020 NFL Draft Report Card. I am your judge and jury, John Morris, and today we're going to be doing the NFC North. Now, last time we did the AFC North, in case you missed it, here is how that shook out. And as far as our grading scale goes, here is that. Here is our trade modifier scale. And here's the curve that we are grading the overall team grades on. Now, last time we talked about every single player drafted. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to change it up a little bit. You will see why in a minute. That being said, all of the grades will still be there. So if you're curious, you can go take a look at that. And with all of that out of the way, let's get right into the NFC North, starting with the Detroit Lions. Something important to note about this Lions draft is this was the last year of general manager Bob Quinn, and this was the last season of head coach Matt Patricia. When we go through this draft, it is very clear that this draft is an indicator of their overall performance, and it is very clear why they left. Ohio State cornerback Jeff Okudah. It's really unfortunate just the scale that things did not work out for Jeff Okudah. Like, there's not working out, and then there's what happened to him. He was part of that god-awful Matt Patricia defense in his rookie season, and I don't care who you are, Deion Sanders would not have done well in that defense. After that, in his sophomore season, he ended up tearing his Achilles. Rookie season in a garbage defense. Second season, just gone due to injury. An important thing to note about his profile is that he was never the guy who was like a freak athlete. He had the athleticism to keep up, but where he really shined was in his ability to have really sound fundamentals, be super technical, and be in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, after that Achilles, he just was never able to keep up anymore. For the overall pick of Jeff Okudah, we're giving that a 2 out of 10. That being said, he was traded to the Falcons in 2023 for a 5th round pick, which was what they used to jump up a few spots and select Brian Branch. If you've watched any Lions football, you know Brian Branch is electric. He's a stud, really good player. So we are giving them a +1 in the modifier. The next super notable pick here that we're going to talk about is Ohio State guard Jonah Jackson at pick number 75 in the 3rd round. Now, off the rip, he started all 4 seasons with the Lions. He made a Pro Bowl in 2021. He's a very solid guard. With guys that are drafted on the offensive line after the 2nd round, a very common profile for them is much better run blocker than pass blocker. This does hold true for Jonah Jackson. They did let him walk in free agency, partially because he did struggle with some injuries throughout his career. That being said, in the 3rd round, you got 4 years of a starting guard who made a Pro Bowl. I know the Pro Bowl means a little bit less these days than it used to. I gave this one a 7 out of 10. I think in the 3rd round, that's a pretty solid find. And we're going to skip ahead all the way to the 5th round at pick number 166, where they picked up Wisconsin wide receiver Quintez Cephus. Now, aside from being part of the all-name team, he did play 3 seasons in Detroit. His best season was his rookie year, where he had 349 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Where Quintez Cephus kind of falls off as far as the grading for this pick goes is he missed a lot of time in 2022 on IR with a foot injury. Then after that, he got suspended indefinitely for violating the NFL's gambling policy. The Lions cut him, and then he bounced around a little bit. As far as a 5th round receiver goes, you can't have a 5th rounder with that kind of production causing problems. He can be a very valuable 4th or 5th guy on your depth chart or receiver, but you can't have those guys going around and getting suspended for dumb shit. This pick gets a 3 out of 10. If the suspension didn't happen, and let's say he had a 4 or 5 year career, putting up about 350, 400 yards a season with a few touchdowns, this pick would be a 5 or 6, probably a 6, but with that gambling thing, I just had to cut it. A really interesting note later on in that 5th round for the Lions was their pick at 172 running back Jason Huntley out of New Mexico State. The thing about Jason Huntley is that coming out of college, everyone was like, this guy's fast, this guy's super athletic, definitely could be a good rotational or special teams piece. A lot of folks had him projected as a return specialist, but in the preseason of his rookie year, they went and when they were doing roster cutdowns, they tried to waive him and then stash him on the practice squad. That didn't work. The Eagles ended up picking him up where he spent a couple years there. As far as that goes, even for a 5th rounder, you want to get some time with him actually on either your roster or your practice squad. It's just a 2 out of 10 just because they got nothing for him, really. Later on in that 6th round at 197, another member of the all-name team, John Penisini. John Penis is calling. Are you picking up the phone? Who was a 3 out of 10. He ended up retiring due to injury pretty early on. Even though he came back, he hasn't really stuck around anywhere. And that pretty much wraps up Detroit. As far as this Lions draft goes, you can see the grades over there. They get a 33 for their selections out of a possible 90. And they did get that +1 in the trade modifier, bringing them up to a 34, which is a 38%, which is a D-. Really bad injury luck in this draft for Detroit. They got a few decent depth pieces in the middle rounds. I will give them that. I would have liked to see them get a little bit more value there, especially given how their early picks panned out. The back half of their draft completely flamed out, and they had 9 total picks. If you have 5 picks between the 5th and 7th round, I don't know, you need at least 2 of those guys to work out, and that just didn't happen for them. Next up, we're going to Minneapolis to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Vikings had 15 picks in this draft. Big dog. Why? What do you need 15 draft picks for? They set the NFL record, broke the NFL record for the amount of picks in a draft since they moved on to the 7-round format. The previous record was Cleveland in 2016. Cleveland had 14 picks in that draft. Part of that was because of the Stephon Diggs trade. They traded him for a package of picks. The first thing to note here is their 22nd overall pick in the 1st round. They drafted LSU receiver Justin Jefferson, who obviously is an elite wide receiver. So they traded Stephon Diggs. They used the pick that they got for Stephon Diggs to draft Justin Jefferson, who also was an elite receiver. Apparently, elite receivers grow on trees. That's a 10 out of 10. Congratulations, Vikings. Apparently, your receiver drafting is just impeccable, out of this world, needs to be studied. Also, they had another pick in that 1st round at the 31st overall selection. They picked up TCU cornerback Jeff Gladney. Now, he only played 1 year in Minnesota. He ended up getting cut after being charged with domestic violence. Yeah, he did end up getting acquitted for that domestic violence, where he was, I believe he had just signed a deal with the Cardinals when unfortunately he was tragically killed in a car crash. So RIP Jeff Gladney. Yeah, as far as the value the Vikings got out of this is a 1st rounder. You can't have that kind of shenanigans out of any of your players, but it hurts even more if you are it's a 1st round player. This pick is grading out at a 2 out of 10. They actually did pretty decent in the early rounds here. In the 2nd round at pick number 58, they grabbed Boise State guard Ezra Cleveland. He was actually a tackle in college. They moved him into guard. They ended up trading him to the Jaguars in 2023 in his contract year for a 2026 6th rounder. He was solid, not great. I gave that a 5. Their next really big highlight here was in the 4th round at 117. They drafted DJ Wonnum, a defensive end out of South Carolina. He spent 4 seasons in Minnesota, where he started 31 games and had 23 sacks. So pretty solid production out of a 4th rounder. He ended up going and signing a 2-year, $12.5 million deal with the Panthers. Overall grade on Wonnum is fantastic, top tier rotational guy. As a starter, not quite what you want, but as a guy you sub in, rotate, maybe a spot starter if you get injured, it doesn't get any better than that. And you need those guys on your roster to compete. So I gave this one a 7 out of 10. Yeah, with 15 picks, we are skimming through these. The next player I really want to highlight in this draft is in the 6th round at pick number 203. They grabbed Oregon State tackle Blake Brandel, who actually ended up earning a 2nd contract with the Vikings. Very versatile. They were able to plug him in at different times into guard and tackle, left and right side, didn't matter. Guys like that, Swiss Army knives on offensive lines, are very, very valuable. If you have one of those guys and you have a guy go down, like, offensive line depth makes or breaks your season. In 2024, he ended up starting all 17 games at left guard, and he played well, solid overall. He's really a guy, though, that you want as your 6th utility lineman. You want him there in case somebody goes down, and the contract that he signs is kind of reflective of that. It was for 3 years, $9.5 million. I gave this pick an 8 out of 10. Also, Also, later on in that 6th round was Josh Metellus at pick number 205, safety out of Michigan. Fantastic special teamer. This is where you really want to hit on really good special teamers. Most of his starts have come in the last 2 seasons where he started 27 games. He ended up earning a second contract with the Vikings as well. And top end backup, decent starter, elite special teams guy. I gave this pick an 8 out of 10 as well. The Vikings actually did a really good job with these 6th round picks. They had 4 7th rounders. None of them worked out, as you can see. I just don't get stacking 7th rounders like that. As far as this overall Vikings grade goes, they get a 73 out of 150, which brings them at a 49%, which brings them to a C. They had a lot of average talent. Missing on that second first rounder really did hurt. Justin Jefferson, that pick really helped keep this draft propped up, because what ended up happening was with their mid-round guys, yeah, they hit on a few of them, but everybody else was average, below average, or at the bottom. Grab your lactate pills, because we are heading over to the Green Bay Packers. The thing of this draft was them picking Jordan Love, 26th overall in that first round, especially with Aaron Rodgers. A lot of Packers fans were like, we need a receiver, we need a receiver, we need a receiver. They didn't pick a receiver. You know, he did end up sitting behind Rodgers for his first few seasons, but it's very clear that that pick worked out. I mean, it's kind of a risky thing, but it's also not the first time the Packers have done that. It seems to be a thing with them. This kind of reinforces, this is an opinion that I've always had about quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's also just a little sidebar why I didn't clown Atlanta too much for grabbing Kirk Cousins in free agency and then drafting Michael Penix in the first, because if you have a quarterback there, and unless your quarterback is in his mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s, and is producing at an elite level, if you see a quarterback there that you like, get your guy, because those guys don't come around very often. This pick got an 8 out of 10 from me. In the 3rd round, at pick number 94 overall, they grabbed Cincinnati tight end Josiah DeGuara. Now, he did play in 50 games over 4 seasons with the Packers. His best season was in 2021, where he had 245 receiving yards and his only 2 career touchdowns. He did play a solid amount of special teams. Here's my issue with the DeGuara pick. His profile as a tight end is more of an H-back role. H-back doesn't really exist anymore in the NFL, but the example that you can look at to get what I'm talking about is Kyle Juszczyk. Cool. That's great. You don't pick that player in the 3rd round. That player is going to be available in the 6th, 7th, or even potentially coming in as an undrafted free agent. To really hammer home that point, a lot of scouts had DeGuara as an undrafted free agent. That's where he was projected to go. If you're going to pick Josiah DeGuara in the 3rd round, it better work out, and your offense better be tailored to using an H-back, which it wasn't. In that 2021 season, where I said he had his best statistical season, he played 35% of the offensive snaps, which was his career high for offensive snap usage. That's teetering on okay. I would really like, if your offense is going to feature an H-back player, I would like to see that a little higher in the 40s. This pick gets a 4 out of 10. It would have been lower if he didn't have really good contributions on special teams. You could have waited 2 more rounds, and I can guarantee you he would have been there, because I can guarantee you there's not another NFL front office that had that kind of player, that archetype of player that would say, hey, let's go get ourselves an H-back. The 3rd round is not the spot to do that. A really nice late round hit for the Packers came in the 6th round at pick number 192, where they picked up guard John Runyon Jr. out of Michigan. This was actually a really solid pickup in the 6th round. He played 4 seasons in Green Bay. He started 3 of those at both left and right guard. They did let him walk in free agency. As I said, he was solid. He was never great. He was never terrible, but he was always solid as a player. He did struggle a little bit in his last season with the Packers. That whole offensive line has been a little discombobulated as of recent, so I can't put that all on him, but that pick got a 7 out of 10. The last pick I'm really going to touch on as far as a miss goes here was Simon Stepaniak out of Indiana, a tackle, picked also in the 6th round. Packers had 3 6th round picks here. He spent the entirety of his rookie season on the non-football injury list, and then he retired in 2021. Now, the thing about Stepaniak is, in his final season in college, in the playoffs, I believe, I think it's either the Gator Bowl or it was a bowl game, getting ready for a bowl game. He ended up injuring his ACL, which is a tough spot for a guy to be, especially a late round pick. I still gave this a 2 out of 10 though, because we're drafting relative value. In the league, you see it all the time. Guys fall or just straight up don't get picked up if an organization thinks they'll never play. Obviously, the Packers took a flyer on him and they thought, hey, maybe we can get some playing time out of him. It didn't pan out. For the Packers, their 2020 NFL draft report card, they get a 41 out of 90, which is a 45.6%, which are rounding up to a 46%, which is a C-. Really, the story of this draft for the Packers was just head-scratching moves in the middle rounds. And so far, we're seeing a lot of struggle with this NFC North. We get to the Chicago Bears. Jesus, this was such a weird draft for this division. I feel like the entire division was just smoking peyote out in the parking lot while the actual draft was going on. This is a weird one because the Bears nailed this draft, in my opinion. I think the Bears had a really, really good draft here by Bears standards. For the Bears here, they did not have a first round pick. Also, the Bears were the only team that only had 7 picks. Now, granted, they still didn't do it in the normal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 way, but they had 7 picks. They didn't have a first round pick. That first rounder was one of the many picks that went to the Raiders for Khalil Mack, who actually in that 2020 season was a second team All-Pro. So for being a solid part of that first round pick is going to give us a +1 in the trade modifier. In that trade, one of the picks they got from the Raiders along with Khalil Mack was pick number 43 in the second round, which they used to draft Cole Kmet, who is obviously a really good tight end. I would argue that he is maybe not elite, but that next tier just under elite. He's right there, and he's probably the top tight end in that tier for my money. So we're going to give that another +1 in the trade modifier. So really that first round pick, we get +2 in that trade modifier category. Ended up helping get 2 really solid players in your franchise. Something that I would like to mention here as well in the second round at pick number 50, they grabbed Utah cornerback Jalen Johnson, who has been a 5-year starter in Chicago, 2 Pro Bowls. He had a second team All-Pro in 2023. Really, really good corner in the second round. I gave that an 8 out of 10. Somewhere else that I think they hit pretty well on was in the 5th round at pick number 173. They grabbed Tulane wide receiver Darnell Mooney. He spent 4 seasons in Chicago. His best season was in 2021 with a little over 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, after that, his production did dip. I'm not necessarily putting that entirely on Darnell Mooney. I know he had some injuries here and there, but I'm putting that more on the Bears offense not being able to get its shit together. And proof of that is as soon as he left and he went to Atlanta, an offense that didn't even fully have its shit together for most of the season last year, just had it a little bit more together than the Bears. He was just under that 1,000-yard mark again, and his production really came back to where you would expect it to be after that 2021 season. I gave that pick a 6 out of 10. I would have given it a 7 or an 8 if they would have been able to get it together organizationally and fundamentally and really give him the production he needs and keep him around, but they couldn't do that. So as far as the value that the Bears got out of him, that is a 6 out of 10. And from there, neither of their 7th rounders really hit. They both spent a lot of time on the practice squad, maybe played a couple games here or there, and ended up getting waived pretty early into their careers. So for this Bears draft, their players got them a 37 out of 70, but then they had those +2 trade modifiers, which brings them up to a 39 out of 70 at a 56%, which is a B-. It's such a weird year when Chicago has the best draft in the NFC North. Going over the overall draft grades for the NFC North, the Bears are leading at a B-. We have the Vikings next at a C, the Packers at a C-, and the Lions at a D-. The Lions draft had a lot of bad luck in it. I only half fault the Lions here really for how this draft shook out. Same with the Vikings. Like, your first round pick cornerback ending up in some serious legal troubles. Yeah, you can do things like personality evaluations, look for character concerns and stuff like that, but sometimes it's kind of hard to tell exact how that's going to go. You're not Nostradamus. You can't necessarily predict the future, but for the Packers, that is entirely on them. I think outside of their first couple picks there, they just progressively, as they were going down their draft, made decisions to shoot themselves in the foot, like that DeGuara pick. And I don't get it. And finally, here is a look at how everything so far has shaken out. The next division that we're going to be doing is going to be the AFC East. If you liked this video, why don't you go ahead and give it a like and subscribe. And outside of that, I will catch you later.